Yeah.
Good
morning.
Good morning. I'm trying from right here. Ta-da! Welcome to the Sun Dragon Sideshow.
The Dear Becky and Lizzy edition.
Okay, and you can't really see my dress, but I want to show everyone my dress before I sit down. So I want to go like this. There's mountains on it. I promise I'm not flashing anybody.
No.
Ta-da!
It looks so cool. And you can see the little mountain peakies on the...
Ta-da! Yes. Okay, hang on. Hi, I'm Rebecca. I'm the owner of Sun Dragon Art and Fiber in... Hang on, I gotta get my skirt going. Sunny and hopefully not rainy again today, Brevard, North Carolina.
I'm Liz. I'm the minion there.
We have all kinds of yarn from yesterday's thing in my way. I'm moving shocked. It. So
it's okay. I'll get them all put up today.
It is the ish. It's the Dear Becky and Lizzy edition. We're redoing a lot of. You're like, oh, that rack doesn't. That's the pretty one. We got all that feeder brook in, so that's the pretty one. It's Dear Becky and Lizzy edition today because it's Thursday. So, and I've got all kinds of wires. This is our microphone wire. Doesn't look as pretty as like.
The yarn.
The yarn. There we go. And I've decided since I'm wearing, I still haven't posted. I try to get in early enough to do stuff, so my morning posts on Instagram this whole week, they go up late. Because I was like, I was going to put this on Instagram and I forgot. No, I just haven't posted on Instagram yet. Now that I'm wearing dresses, I feel like my socks are showing a little bit more on top of my, or just having comfortable socks that work with my shoes. Because I found some of the print ones that I got for Christmas have a seam right where they're going to rub in my new shoes, which are all super cute. So I have to start making more socks for myself. So that's what I started last night. Never mind, I have all these other projects to get done. I started working on socks last night.
Well, funny you should be mentioning all these other projects because our first question has to do with that.
Does it? Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So
go for it. I'm going to see if I can knit and talk at the same time.
Good morning, Becky and Liz. I want to start off and say we missed you both yesterday because she wrote this like last week and
we just missed it. We had just filmed when it came. When we noticed that it came in.
Yep. And so glad y'all are back. The sit and stitches are so much fun to be a part of. My question is, how many projects do you both have now? What is the oldest one as of today? Do you really have needles in all of them? Sorry, that was more than one question. Thank you for all you do. Love knitting in the dark.
They're interconnected questions, so
yes.
I'm okay with that, right?
Yes.
You start.
So I was up to 180 and then I started a new project last week. In fact, because I was sitting in my chair.
I didn't even know if you still had you still had a good count.
Oh yeah, I keep a fairly decent count. So I have 181 projects on needles.
That's a very precise number.
Yes.
Wait, you said you started a new one because you were sitting in your chair. I was sitting in my chair. I cut you off. What was that?
I was waiting. It was last Wednesday morning. I was waiting
for your thing.
For my appointment thing. And so I started a new project.
Of course you did.
And so, okay, let me back up.
So you see what happened was.
I count my knitted projects. I don't count my crocheted projects.
For the very thing that she's saying
yes.
in there, are there really needles in all of them?
Yes.
We count the ones that are occupying needles.
Because theoretically, I don't, but theoretically, you can pull your hook out of your crochet projects and go to a different project. Theoretically. That's the same reason I don't take my needles out of my projects, is I would never figure out what needle size to put back in there.
To knot in my yarn.
It
happens. Not worried about it. Actually, these are socks I'm going to be wearing, so I might cut that out. Sorry, squirrel.
It's okay.
Yes.
So yes, I have 181 projects on needles. My oldest one is probably the Whoop Whoop sweater that I started No, I pulled the needles out of that one because I needed them. So that one's sitting without needles.
That was 6 years ago, though.
I know. Uh-huh.
But it's not on needles, but it is still an unfinished project.
Yeah. It was like you start at the cuff and you build up, and then you increase so many to go around the back, and then you go back down to down your sleeve, and then you sew up the sleeves. And it was one of those, like, they're becoming popular again because other designers have started
it's
going.
It's like a sweater scarf.
Yeah, and we call it the voop voop sweater because you...
One way to put it on was to do the voop voop, and you had the crisscross and the something.
And so that's probably the oldest.
I'm going to interject for a second so I can keep knitting.
Okay.
Since I have a knot here, like I put it over my hair or my thing there, I'm leaving just enough that I can cut this and tie an end in, and then I'm holding where the knot is and making the same length on the other side before I pick up with where I'm knitting or purling. So that way, when I go back to this, and I'm leaving it on the outside actually, so I've got, like, the knot is roughly in the middle here, and I can cut that and weave my ends in and not feel the knot when I'm wearing the socks. Now, I mean, the other thing I could do is keep knitting through this and interchange it with one of the other socks I've made that's a shop sample. But for now, I'm going to do this. So, okay. You hadn't answered all parts of that question yet, though, I think. You said, 181.
Yeah.
Your oldest one, well, maybe you have kind of answered all parts. I don't know. Your oldest one is possibly the Voop Voop or something. It dates back to the beginning of the shop.
Yeah.
And are they all on needles? Not necessarily, but most.
Like except
most of
for
those
that one.
So most of your 180 have some kind of needles in them? Oh my gosh, you have so many size 10 and a half needles at your house.
So the overall answer to that is I work at a yarn shop. That tends to be my frosting over everything when people wig out that I have that many needles. That's your
excuse that life is that crazy.
But
we don't expect others to be in the same situation as us. Okay.
So part of the reason that I have that many sets of needles is because since I work at a yarn shop, I come into work and somebody shows a pretty sweater or a pretty something, or Rebecca gets new yarn, and I'm like, I want to play with that now. I leave all my needles at home. Like, I don't carry a pocket of needles with me to work. That would just be crazy talk.
That would just be planning too far ahead.
Yes. So I wind up coming into work, new yarn, whatever, and going, oh, I want to start a project. Let me just buy needles, yarn. Like, I have all the yarn at home too, but you know
what I want to do? I know we talk about like what you've bought or what we have a record of that. I want to go back and look at like my purchase record for the size needles you like to use and see if it's like wildly disproportionate to other size needles. Like I keep buying them because you keep buying them. Or if, it maxes out with everybody else buys other size needles. So, it's the 10 and 10 and a half, right?
Well, now it's everything between 9 and 11. But
That's
the
true.
10 and 10 and a half. I know.
For a while, that was your sweet spot.
I know that I am the primary purchaser of the 10.75s, the
yes,
10.875s.
The not normal sizes, I only order when people need them, and that people
I'm
means
like,
Liz.
Hey.
Yep.
So, I when I tell people who come into the shop how many projects I have on needles, they look at me like, oh my gosh, that's excessive. And I'm like, I work at a yarn shop. And they're like, oh, that makes perfect sense.
Oh, then it's okay.
Yeah. Like, so it's the same response for why did you knit 30 different balls of yarn into your papillons? I work at a yarn shop. Oh, well, like, not even joking. They're like, that makes complete sense,
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So these parts of this question. Okay. So I have not counted, like, I count every time I set up for our Sunday monthly dual platform virtual sit and stitch, which is this Sunday, by the way. August 20th. I can't believe it's August 20th on Sunday.
I know.
That's insane.
I know.
August 20th, from 1 to 5 p.m., Facebook Live. Just tune in and watch and write comments if you like, or go to Zoom and you can get into Zoom with the shop phone number
828-877-3550.
And I try to put all of my projects that currently on needles or in progress up on the counter around, like the desk around where I'm filming, and then I will casually count. But I don't keep a running tally. It's in the 30s somewhere for me. It's not as bad as not, and I don't. The word "bad" implies bad. It's not as high as yours because it's not necessarily bad.
Most people wig out when they hear how many, or they don't,
or
believe
they just
it.
don't believe it. Yeah. I'm in the 30s somewhere, and I've finished several things, but then I start about twice as many as I finish quite often.
I want to say a year after I started knitting, I was up in the 70s. Mm-hmm. And shout out to Amy D. She posted that in like Knit and Chat, and everybody was like, there is no way.
Well, and here's the other thing is I think I've kept it consistently in the 30s since February.
Yeah.
But in February, with the Finish It or Frog It February, I culled my stuff. I either bound off or finished things, and I did that to about 30 things. I was more like at 60 plus in February, and then I finished or frogged or bound off at least 30 things. So I have not counted recently to see if I have surpassed 30, being in the 30s.
You might be up to 40, but it's still,
I still finish a couple of things and then start quite a few more. So, it does this. But, and having a, like, I won't start another project till I finish this, that never works for me. I also, disclaimer on this.
You own a yarn shop.
That's the end part of what I was about to say.
Go ahead.
But yes. So it's related to owning a yarn shop. It's not just because I own the yarn shop and I just have a free-for-all in here. That's a side effect. It's that I'm also trying to do different things that will appeal to different knitters and crocheters, and I'm not necessarily fully trying to balance the palette of what I'm making, but I try to keep in mind that different people are going to like different things. And so having lots of different things going at once can sometimes be beneficial. Because if I only focused on one project, this is what my brain says. It's not necessarily reality. It's what my brain says. If I focus on only one thing and get it done, I will get it done faster, but half of the people watching may be bored during that time because they want to see me working on something else, or they might be interested in something else. And it's not that every single post I put up on Instagram brings somebody into the shop. Like, so I post about 7 different things and people are buying those 7 different things that week. But at least 2 or 3 times a week, we have people coming in saying, you worked on this, I want it. Or I want a different color of that. Or that inspired me and I'm going to start X project. So there's reasons to why I do it. Or there's possible benefits. But that isn't the only reason to do stuff. It's like with creativity and like for me, there's dual purposes. But it's a tough trap to not get stuck in, of turning your hobby into something that suddenly is all about, well, it's gotta have purpose, or it's gotta have this, it's gotta have that. That is treading close to the should line, and should is a shame word. But it's really trying to strike a balance of the deadline knitting and the doing things because it brings you joy, And if you can do it all so it brings you joy. The new phones are working and they're quiet. I love it. If the squirrel, if you can keep it all to bringing you joy, then that is fantastic. That is the ultimate sublime goal, is that all knitting brings you joy. I find there's stress with almost every project for me it's whether the stress is teeny tiny or overwhelming, so. My oldest one though, to get back to that, sorry, you're looking up the next question.
Have 2 more.
Yeah. I'm trying. I'm just trying to be thorough too. Okay, my oldest project still on needles. I don't know. That is a hard one to answer. I have socks still on needles that aren't for the shop, and they're still on needles because it's a yarn we don't have in the shop anymore. So it gets put into deep hibernation timeout. So I can probably track some of my projects that may never get touched again, back to the beginning of the shop, or even prior to that. I think I've pulled most of the prior to that off needles. February let me pull a lot of stuff off needles that could be reclaimed for like for minion bags of mystery and things like that. So current stuff on needles, I think we're going back at least a year or two, at least. But I'm trying to take the older things and finish them. So, you know, Liz is the math. Liz wins at all of these. So was that all parts of the question?
That was all parts of the question.
Okay, what do we have? What else do we have?
Next question. Dear Liz and Rebecca, first question. Does Rebecca ever go by Becky or Becca? Just wondering, and you can decline to say.
Is that it?
No, there's a second question.
Okay, well, let's answer this while we're here. My parents tried to have my nickname be Becca, and the story goes that when I was about 5, I put my foot down and said, no, I'm Becky. And I was Becky up until I graduated from college, and then I tried to be more professional and went with Rebecca. So people from different periods of my life know me as different things. I answered at this point as an adult, as a mature, well-adjusted, no, not really, but I'll pretend, adult. I answer to all forms of Rebecca. So I will answer to Becky or Becca or all of those. I used to be a diehard Becky. You know, but I don't have problems with any of them anymore. It's all good. So.
Second question.
Okay.
I received my Cherub Aaron Prince Vineyard, and it is beautiful. Would you recommend any specific cardigan or sweater pattern for this gorgeous yarn? Thank you so much for all you do as my cross-country local yarn store and primary source of knitting inspiration. You two are incredible. Viking Pillager in California.
Yay, compliments. Okay. Cherub Aaron Vineyard.
I was going to, like, if you're looking at patterns, suggest ones that are very simple, since it's got
those big chunks of color.
big chunks of color.
And if you're going wider because you're making a bigger size, those will be thinner chunks of color, but it still will be a busy yarn. Yeah, I agree with you. What, like, my adage is busy yarn, simple pattern, simple yarn, busy pattern. You know, like, I mean, you can always do a simple yarn with a simple pattern, but doing a busy yarn, it's like the different matrices, right? Doing a busy yarn with a busy pattern, one of them, probably the pattern, is going to get lost. Like, when you have lots of color changes, then any fancy stitch work is going to get lost, or it won't absolutely get lost, but there's a really good chance. Yeah. So, like, I've got my my lightweight hipster has the big crisscross sections of the shawl with the drop stitches. That shows up with a really busy yarn. It's a variegated, so it's busier than stripey. But there's some lace work in that one. You don't even know it's there because of the variegated yarn. Sometimes it's all over busy enough that cables and other things still show up. But stripes this way with cables this way, if you like that, great. Like, we're not telling you not to do it, but we're saying if, like, they might fight with each other. You either might find they go with each other, but more people find they fight with each other, right? So I think that's a good point.
I would take, like, if you have a favorite sweater pattern,
Mm-hmm.
I would just pick your favorite sweater, you know, a very plain, like, it's a thinner.
Well, this person may not have a favorite sweater,
that's
but
true.
let's move on once you finish that thought.
But just, like, if you have one that you know fits, that's out of that weight of yarn, or the ranunculus could be cool in a stripe.
I mean, there's
but
always
you're going to lose some of it.
Yeah, but I found, like, I'm making the ranunculus, like, our go-to, if it's anywhere between lace weight and worsted weight, make a ranunculus, or a love note, or one of those, like, fun things. And it's not just because I'm biased, because my videos do really well on that. But I'm making a ranunculus out of a striped yarn. It's not as chunky striped as the Cherub Aaron, but it's fun. It sometimes stripes with some pattern work, and the ranunculus doesn't have all over pattern work. Sometimes it can work out so it looks like this, but the pattern work in the ranunculus goes this way instead of, like, cables going this way. Sometimes it can look like you changed colors on purpose for certain parts and you didn't, and then you super impress people. But
I just thought, like, everybody talks about the Ranunculus and the Love Note, but the Dead Easy is actually it's like the Ranunculus,
like the name implies.
Yeah, you can pick a lighter yarn to do on the size 10 needle, and it has eyelets and those strands where you're doing the pearl one, where you bring your yarn in front. It has 3 rings of those.
So it's got a similar structure, maybe even a similar or an easier yoke work.
Yep.
I don't have videos on it. That's not important necessarily. But Love Note and Dead Easy, you can do them. You don't need me. It's okay. Love Note is by Tin Can Knits. And Dead Easy, do we know who Dead Easy is by? It's by someone well known. I just can't remember who.
I'm looking.
While she's looking, if you don't want the big oversized loose one, something just easy. If you are comfortable with short rows, the No Frills sweater by Petite Knit, and I'd put these all in the description, but I'm probably going to forget half of what we said, so you'll have to go off of what we're verbally saying right now. That's by the No Frills sweater by Petite Knit is a DK, which Cherub Erin is like between a DK and a worsted. That one is good if you like short rows. If you don't want to do short rows, my awesome beginner, easy shaping raglan pullover. It has patterning on it has garter on the sleeves, but you don't have to do that. Is the Flax sweater by Tin Can Knits. Not Flax Light, but the Flax sweater. It's for worsted weight. So the Cherub Erin would have a lovely drape on it because it's on the thinner side of worsted. So
Dead Easy is by Karen Fernandez.
That's right, because Karen Fernandez did the Rebel Squirrels. That's why I know her name. So
it is a tighter fitting sweater, and I'm just now looking. It's for fingering through worsted on a US 10. She has a small and medium and a large and extra large, and I just bumped my needle sizes up. Because,
so to make it bigger and drapier, you just went with a bigger needle size.
Yeah.
Okay. Again, not so much focusing on gauge at that point.
Yeah, so. But it's just the rings of eyelet, and it's a really pretty one. Just very simple. I don't know if it's going to show up. Sort of. There we go. Yep.
Just has some stuff going on up in the yoke. But
yep.
If you're going to do a busier pattern, and some of the sweaters we're suggesting are only busy on the top, or mildly busy on the top, they have rings going this way, which can go with the stripes of color in the Cherub Erin, rather than something that's going down and competing with it. So,
your vanilla, is it your easy pullover that you did with the
easy
mohair?
eyelet? Well, the one with the mohair I talked about while you were looking up.
Oh, never mind.
The Dead Easy.
Good to know.
The No Frills sweater by Petite Knit.
Yes.
Yes. And I mentioned I use fingering and mohair held together, which is how she writes the pattern, which equals a DK. So, so some stuff getting thicker than the Cherub Erin will be a little thick for that sweater. But yes, I mentioned that one.
Okay, so, good to know.
When I mentioned it, it was in the context of that one has German short rows, and if you don't want to do short rows, that's why the Flax sweater is a good option. So, hopefully we at least touched on that enough, because we should go. Well, was the 3 questions because 2 of them were in one?
No, there's one more question.
Okay. I'm not looking at what she's looking at.
Okay.
So. Yes?
Hello, ladies. Just finished watching your most dangerous show of the week. I indeed can see why it's dangerous. I want to buy everything you point in front of the camera. This leads to my question. What thought process do you go through to decide which yarns to stock for your brick and mortar and online?
I thought it was going to be which ones to put as the VSC, because there's no thought process.
There must be so many to choose from, and always limited funds with which to work. Thanks for all you do. Love your podcast. Keep up the good work, and happy anniversary. Your fan from Eastern Canada.
So the limited funds is always the tough one, and the more you guys buy, the more I can bring in or add to or replenish. It's tough when someone comes into the shop and says, "But you're out of this colorway. Why haven't you brought it back in?" And more often than not, it's because I try to ration who I buy from when, and that doesn't always work. And restocking a color, like I'm still getting back to the original question, but restocking a color sometimes falls by the wayside of a new yarn coming in or who we've ordered from and when we've ordered from them.
We're closer to being out of an entire line of yarn, and we only need one color of a different yarn to bring in. So
and that one sometimes goes into timeout, into hibernation. So it's hard to have a short answer to this. Not that we want to do a short answer. It has been a challenge, and every day I look around and go, oh, the holes in what I'd like to have in the shop. But our line that we tell people, which is true, it's not just a line, but it's an easy way to communicate it to people, is we really strive to have a variety of thicknesses and fibers, and if we can, price points.
Yes.
Like, I know there's a lot of yarn shops that cater to different clientele and kind of only focus on that, and we've tried to run the gambit here. I want to say our clientele is more mid-range, like, so we can appeal to a lot of different audiences. I've had people come in and we didn't have the specific kind of thing they were looking for, so they kind of went, huh, and walked out. And, it is what it is, right? But more recently, whenever we bring in a new yarn, it has to be because we have a hole in that weight category or that fiber category. Like we have nothing like it in the shop. Like we're trying to have the basics, and we don't have the basics in every weight category, but having stuff in the mid-range that's machine washable, having a non-washable wool in hopefully a bunch of different weight categories, having, if we can, a washable wool in different weight categories. It's hard for that to go too thin or too thick. Having alpaca in every weight category, or having an alpaca wool blend. It's not going to happen in every weight category. A cotton. It's hard to have cottons that are super teeny tiny right now, but we do have people who are looking for really thin cottons, especially if we have people who are up here from Florida all the time. And so we're trying to appeal, like having stuff that's acrylic, but not a lot of that, just because some people want acrylic. Honestly, it makes things more easy care and affordable. And not everyone's going to want super fancy yarn. And sometimes that's because you're making things that a kid's going to outgrow, and you don't want to sock a lot of money into that. And I get that. But
for the last 3 years, since Sugar Bush went out of business, we've been looking for a replacement for super bulky yarn. Like,
whether it's machine washable or not. Sugar Bush was our single ply, super bulky, but it was soft. We found things that look like it but don't feel like it, and people see it and they're like, ooh, that feels so soft, and then they feel it and they're like, that's not soft. And it's like, it's not super wash. That's part of why it's not soft, but
so it's just like, hey, what did our yarn reps come, what do you have this year that fills our holes?
And they'll show us really pretty yarns, but they're really close to a fiber content and weight that we already have. Like once we got the basics in here, like there's still things people are looking for that we don't have when it comes to a weight and a fiber. But once we got the basics in here, then when people bring us new yarns, it's like, but we have something like that. Yeah. And as pretty as it is to have two things that are, one might be a single ply and one might be multiple plies, but they're the same fiber content, and I don't see both of them doing well in the shop. So unless I want to move one out to bring one in, which is really hard to do, like we're looking at changing over one of our really sturdy worsted weight cottons, and it's hard to do while we still have stock of the old one. But people want more colors of the old one. But it's like, no, we're trying to actually wean that down so we can bring a new one in. And God, this is why when people come in and say, Oh, I love knitting. I would love owning a yarn shop. I don't want to be the super pessimist and say, oh, no, you wouldn't. But I want to say you need to go into it with your eyes open. Because it's more than just, I love yarn. But people, I'm sure people who want to start a yarn shop have heard that ad nauseum from people. Like, I was told over and over and over and over again, don't open a yarn shop. Like, by people who had yarn shops, don't do it. And here are the reasons why. And I listened to them all. And most of them were ones that I knew about and was ready for, or there were ones that I could take into consideration. But it was people assuming that I had the rose-colored glasses of just, I want to knit all day. I've got to open a yarn shop. No, that's not why I wanted to do it. And I still love this more than other jobs I've had. But it's not because it's stress-free.
It is unlike any other job. Like, yarn shops are like a combination between yarn. So, like, the yarn community feels very safe here. They like to share. So it's like a beauty salon and a bar.
And a bar, yeah.
And then it's retail. So you get retail store. Work at a yarn shop, they said. And, like, during the height of the pandemic, like, even when people started not the height, but, like, as people started quit wearing masks, some of the shops around us were like, oh, yeah, we just couldn't keep up with the masks because we carry heavy loads of stuff. And you guys have yarn, so it's okay for you guys to keep wearing masks.
Heavy. Oh, because they were breathing heavy when they were, like...
Yeah, like, moving, like, the gem shop.
Okay, yeah.
And... yarn's heavy. I don't know if anybody's...
You get enough of it. We break a sweat in here all the time.
Rebecca's past several box are at least 30 to 50 pounds of yarn when they come in.
So, yeah, and I will say another thing, because we have actually let some reps outside, and we've gone through some books recently. Another, like, tangent to this question is how to pick the colors that we bring in. Because as some knitters who contacted us looking for a color range and using the online color ranges that yarn companies have discovered is we can't bring them all in. Like Cascade for their 220 and their 220 superwash have like 60, 70 colors. And we've got 20, 30 colors here, but we can't bring them all in. And so it's like we have new yarns coming in, or we got new colorways of yarn. When the new colors come in, we have to pick and choose and like create a palette that is balanced enough that people like orange will find something. And like I try to shoot for like a rainbow and some neutrals. And sometimes if we're gonna go overboard on a color, maybe more blues or but that changes with fashion changes. Yeah, the one in between the two grays could be the one that's really going to sell, and we don't know. So we try our best to have a balanced palette, but we're still going to have holes in our colors. And, I mean, it's not stuff that keeps me up at night. I actually last night had all these teaching dreams, stress dreams, which was really weird. But it's a constant, just like,
it's a ballet dance.
You have to kind of, it's like ballet with jazz, with other stuff,
yeah.
With like, there's a little bit of improv happening. There's a little bit of, using your intuition and just seeing, like, saying, I think this one will sell well. I think this one's pretty. I think this one is one I would never buy, but it looks intriguing enough someone else would. Sometimes having another person there is really great. Because they'll pick things you wouldn't have picked.
Sometimes.
I get more colors for her.
No. It was the pre-pandemic when the reps would come and you're like, tie me to masks. I'm not buying anything. And okay. And then they'd pull out their color cards and their little swatches. And Rebecca would go, ooh, Liz, they have it in red and black. And I'm like, cut the ropes. Cut the ropes.
That's how
so
I
it doesn't happen.
Yeah. Anyway, we need to go soon.
The second part was how do we
there was a second part. Sorry.
For our web store, and I can do that really fast.
There was a web store?
Well, how do we pick colors for our brick and mortar and our online shop? Everything that's in here is up for our online shop,
If I put it in.
Not everything here is in our online shop because there's only allowed 12 pictures. And when you have 30 different colors,
that's a lot of work.
It's a lot of work.
So, we don't on purpose only put some things online and some things in the shop or have different things in different places. It really is a matter of the online shop is me getting it up. Like, Liz is our shipping and fulfillment, and I have a small part to play in that. I do the electronic, the computer stuff, and getting stuff into the online shop. I am limited by how many items I can have there, and I might be running close to our 5,000, which is, but there are things that are in the online shop that I could cull because they're not actually visible, that kind of stuff. But it's all me on the backside, taking the pictures, editing the pictures, putting labels on the photos, getting them into the online shop, writing the descriptions for the online listings, matching the photos with the drop-down menu descriptions. And when we are only allowed 12 pictures because we have to use the point of sale, what's connected to our point of sale. Otherwise, it would be a flipping nightmare. And that system, it only has, like, when it says, like, the add to cart option on the clickable picture, I don't want that to be there, but because usually people need to go in and use the drop-down menu to pick their color, but the formatting, unless I learn coding and get special access, like, some things are already, like, formatted, and that's the way they look in our Lightspeed system. And everything else, like, I need to make it fit. I need to make our round pegs fit into square holes, basically. And since I'm doing everything else for the shop, that sometimes falls by the wayside. There's a lot of things I've put up online on social media recently of this is not in the online shop yet. I'll try to get to it, but contact the shop because I'm working really hard at self-care lately. And that means not doing as many things as keeping as many plates spinning in the air because it was really draining me dry. And in not keeping all the plates spinning in the air, some of them are falling and breaking. Or just hovering there for a minute.
Just so, everyone knows, to take a yarn that we get like 6 colors in, it takes you all day.
At minimum, all day to take the photo. Like if it's a new one for VSC, to take the photos and do the editing. Because I also have people coming in for sit and stitch, people coming, and Liz can field some of it, but not all of it. If a lesson comes in that same day that I've scheduled, if more people are in the shop than one person can juggle, there's lots of other things going on. Getting the video ready that talks about the yarn, all these things. Sometimes it just takes a while. So, speaking of which, we have 5 minutes till the shop is supposed to be open and ready for business. So we are going to go now. I'm going to show everybody my dress one more time around the edges.
It's so pretty.
This is my favorite one. It got a little mucked up by my seatbelt today, but this is my favorite one right now. Yee. And I'm actually really surprised it's my favorite one because it doesn't have shaping, but it's drapey enough. It has pockets, and it's drapey enough that I don't mind it not having the shaping. I think it's okay. So, we love you all. Have a good weekend. Come to virtual Sit and Stitch tomorrow night, only on Zoom from 7 to 9 p.m. Shop phone number to get in.
828-877-3550.
And then Sunday afternoon is this Sunday, August 20th, 1 to 5 p.m. And it's Facebook Live and Zoom, that same shop phone number. And I'm not going to walk around. I'm going to do this. Ready? Bye.
Bye. Oh, like, subscribe, ring the bell, all the fun stuff. Go.